Hey, I'm the War Wanderer, searching for that new conquest. Now, I have to admit, I didn't enjoy Crusader Kings 3 at first. It felt very similar to Crusader Kings 2, just with a texture refit, and it felt quite bland at the same time. However, I do have to admit, with the Northern Lords expansion, I'm enjoying it a bit more, especially the Varangian adventures. They've really got my imagination going, and it's made me think, what would have happened if the Vikings had launched the Scramble for Africa 1,000 years before the actual Scramble for Africa? And yes, this is what this playthrough is going to be. We're going to do a Varangian adventure to West Africa, and we're going to see what happens. On that note, let's go, Wanderers. So in this playthrough, we're going to be playing as Jarl Heierstein, because he's the most westernly Viking available, and I can't bother to make my own character. Yeah, I'm lazy. Now, here we are in Brittany, and here's what we start with. We start with 3,000 special soldiers, because we have two 1,500 stacks of men. And what's good about these units is that they come with their own men at arms, so we don't have to purchase any. The downside is when our ruler dies, we lose all of them. And you saw we only have about, what, 200 to 300 levies from this one province, so that will not do. We definitely need to expand. Now we've had a quick look at our national situation, let's go look at our ruler. Our ruler is pretty OP. He has 29 martial skill thanks to all the military traits and his quick trait, which is inheritable, and that's pretty insane, his martial skill. One that is not so great is the fact he's lustful. We're going to have a lot of kids, but that's okay, we can mitigate that. His ambitious and greedy trait, on the other hand, are pretty good. I'm quite happy with those. Now, areas that he is pretty weak in are learning, which is useless anyway for what we're doing, and stewardship, which is a bit more of a concern because that's going to limit our holdings. But that's okay, because what we need this guy to do is go into a West African country and hit it hard and take as much as we can get, and that's exactly what he is built for. He is definitely the perfect build for that. Now here's West Africa in its current situation, and it does look like a very succulent underbelly to conquer into. There looks like there's many opportunities. The biggest question though is, how do we get there? Now the answer to that question is the Varangian adventures. However, the Varangian adventures can only take you so far, and I mean that quite literally. They have a geographical range limit, so we can't from northern France launch a Varangian adventure for West Africa. We have to make a pit stop at a nearer location to West Africa. Turns out the nearest location we can go to is Morocco with the Emirate of Fez. So we're setting sail and we're heading there. Now this was a fairly easy war. I just sieged down most of their strongholds, and then I set off for the final showdown on the coastline. Battle won, commander mutilated, war won. Can you ask for a better war? And then it wasn't a period of rest, it was a period of, okay, what's the next target, because I can't stay here. I realised I was basically surrounded on all fronts by angry Muslims that wanted their rightful territory back, and so I was more in the thinking of, okay, now how do I get to West Africa from here? And I'm happy to say I did find a target, as you can see here, the High Chieftain of Takur. I think that's how it's pronounced, I don't know. But he makes a fairly good meaty target that would make a good settling point as well. There is a consequence to this. As you can see, since the last war, if I declare this war again, the prestige hit has doubled. It is quite a substantial amount, but I think it's a worthy sacrifice. We're not going to be able to survive here, and we need to get to West Africa ASAP. Now, after declaring the war, I found an obstacle which probably would have prevented the Vikings in real life, why they never invaded West Africa. I think I've made a major discovery. I made this major discovery because my army was taking rather a logical route, and I wondered, why don't we just sail around the coast? And the answer to that question will stun you. There's a big invisible wall in the middle of the West African coastline. I've never heard of this before, but clearly the CK3 developers had, and that's why the Vikings never invaded West Africa, because there's a big invisible wall. I have to admit though, I can't say I haven't learned something from this. Anyway, we finally get there after going on a casual stroll through the Saharan desert. Love doing those. And being honest, this war is even easier because we just arrive, we siege down the towns, I capture the king, the war's over. Done and dusted. But this was always going to be the easy part. The hard part is cementing myself into this part of West Africa and not allowing myself to be ganged up on by all the different tribal leaders. But before we get to any strategy, of course I need to Norsify my petty kingdom on the shore. I've changed all the names and I've taken a leaf out of Greenland's book and named it Green River. And originally I thought it was the Gambian River, but it turns out it's the Senegal River, so the more you learn, right? Anyway, I've tried to keep it authentic by naming it all in Danish words, because I believe my guy is Danish, so yeah, all the words that I've used are pretty much spelt in Danish. I just want to apologise to all Danish people though, that I probably will pronounce loads of words wrong. Please pity me. But what threats will our petty kingdom of Grenflod face? Well, as you can see, we're surrounded by minor tribals, as you can see, but there's rather quite a big threat to my east, and that is Ghana. Yeah, they're not actually that strong, but I think in the next few years they'll become pretty scary, so I want to be friends with them. Moving on. The next plan was I needed funds, I needed more prestige because I had spent a lot to get down here, so it was time to do what every good Viking is good at, raiding. And as a region for raiding, West Africa is not too bad. You get pretty staple 15 gold per region, and everywhere is pretty fast to raid, so yeah, pretty good. I even took a pop at Ghana because they're so big. I summarised that, hey, perhaps I can get a few villagers and then scoot. And, well, I didn't really consider the repercussions. Fortunately, they weren't too bad. But, yeah, I narrowly got out of there without being attacked. I probably would have won this battle that you see that could have happened here, but it wasn't worth the risk. So I'm just glad I got out of there, and we returned home with a full chest of loot. But we didn't rest for long. It was time to take up arms against the tribal lords of Kea. But yeah, again, another easy war. Defeat the army, take the village. Done. Done and dusted. While renaming this province, I noticed its geographical shape was much like a horn. So I decided to call it Horn Coast or Horn Kust, and its capital would be Cohorn or Cowhorn.
And that's when I noticed a very strange
wait.
coincidence.
Did I just... Is that just complete coincidence that Emma is a cow? But yeah, it turns out it is just a coincidence because I've looked into it and I find no evidence that cows are associated with this region in modern day, so I don't know. But again, after our gains, it was not a time to rest. It was time for more raiding, and this time I was going to head north. However, of course that would mean traipsing through the desert because there's an invisible wall in the middle of the West African coastline. So we can't go by boats. Damn that wall. So we're walking through the desert and we're just going to see what happens when we get there. And yeah, after traipsing through the desert, it wasn't too bad actually. Didn't lose anyone. I mean, just going for the Sahara is just, you know, like going through the park. No, not a biggie. I keep going on about this, but it just feels really off. Anyway, when we get there, I forgot how good raiding was around the Mediterranean. And yeah, it's pretty rewarding, pretty profitable. And there's an extra way it's profitable. And that's because they've got a much higher development compared to what we have down south. Weird saying that, but anyway. And so I get these events where I can take slaves and move development to my capital. And that happens quite a bit. So yeah, this is a pretty OP event because by the end of it, I have 6 development. Now to give perspective, I believe my development was 4. I can show a part of the video that I took when I originally invaded here. And yeah, now it's up to 6. So this event is really OP if you're in a very low development area and you raid the hell out of a really high development area. And the reason why this is so easy is because when I did my second Varangian adventure, I left this whole region in a complete mess with loads of independent counts. So I'll be back because this was very profitable. Now, while on my raiding expedition, my son Ragnar came of age, and that made me realise, hey, I need to start looking at the marriage market because there's probably some good opportunities out there. The obvious answer was to marry into the Garden royal family. However, the problem was the oldest daughter they had was only 1 year old, and for my 60-year-old son that seemed rather cruel fate to bestow on him. Therefore, I was sort of at an impasse of what to do. But then I remembered, my ruler is lustful, so I must have several sons, and it turns out I do. I have 3, and the second one was 8, which is only a 7-year difference, so yeah, he gets to marry the Garland daughter, and I have a new fancy alliance with them. Yippee. Now with Ragnar, my focus turned more to dynasty building, and I found a daughter that was fairly well aged, had an inheritable trait, and I got an alliance from it, so I was pretty happy. At that point, I was fairly content with how things were going. I wasn't that concerned about the expansion of my nation because I wanted to start building tall rather than wide. But then I got hit by a certain warning of maybe I need to act now. As you know, my ruler comes with 3,000 troops, and when he dies, there you go. So I couldn't waste this opportunity. I just picked the biggest rival and went for it. While this was going on, my son and heir Ragnar was developing quite nicely. You're probably wondering why I'm talking about him so much. No! Yep, he died. As per CK3 logic, whenever you have a good heir, they're going to die in battle. Anyway, we have Colbane now, and Colbane, yeah, he's just Colbane. But yeah, the war, I won it. I got the 2 provinces, but it's fairly bittersweet because, yeah, I've got 2 provinces out, but I lost a really strong heir. Now, like my
previous conquests before, I couldn't hold on to these provinces because they're going to go over my holdings limit. Therefore, I needed to find a vassal that was willing to spread the good Norse word. I'm happy to say I did find one. And considering that he lost his life fighting for our freedoms to take this village, I decided to name it after Ragnar, my dead son and heir. And then it was just a simple case of handing over the provinces to my new vassal. After that, there was still not an opportunity to rest because certain developments forced my hand. You probably noticed before that a vassal of Ghana was winning a war against one of the warlords around me, and yeah, they lost the province and there's not much I could do about it. However, what I can do is assert the boundaries of my prospective kingdom. Therefore, I have to go to war again. Now, the next war goes much like the rest, very easily, and I win. And to be honest, the next two conflicts that I fight to unite my kingdom are also ridiculously easy, so they're not worth mentioning, and this is the end product. One aspect I did change. My final holding I decided to give to Silla. You notice that Silla is not from the Norse culture, but he is a Norse believer and he's accepted some Norse customs like becoming a berserker. So I thought, he's done a great service to the state, he's been a great knight in my army, here's a reward for your service. Now, I wasn't planning this before, but basically for inheritance reasons, I formed the Kingdom of Takura, and then, for a finishing touch, I have named it the Kingdom of Grenflod. Yeah, I'm pretty set on that name. Sorry, Danish people. And with my kingdom forming, I think that's a good time to end episode 1. What to expect in episode 2? Well, I have noticed in the Gambian Hills we're getting a few alliances forming. I'll probably have to stamp those out. And I'm hoping to go on another northern raid into Morocco. Apart from that, if you enjoyed my video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and post a comment about a Varangian adventure that you've had in CK3. See you on out, Wanderers.